A billionaire's pen hovered over a $250 million contract. His advisors leaned in, eager for history to be made. And then, from the shadows, a 10-year-old maid-as daughter whispered one sentence in perfect Arabic that froze the entire room. "This is a fake." The penthouse floated above the city like a glass castle in the clouds. Below, streets tangled with yellow taxis and hurried lives. But up here, silence reigned. The air smelled of lemon polish, leather, and power. At the center sat Sheikh al-Jamil, a man of wealth and burden. His eyes were tired, his beard trimmed with care, his dignity wrapped in silence. Around him gathered polished men in suits worth more than most homes. Their shoes gleamed, their watches flashed, and their voices dripped with practiced respect. The reason for the gathering was a contract. A parchment claimed to be centuries old, sealed in crimson wax, covered in Arabic calligraphy that promised control of an ancient oasis worth hundreds of millions. The man presenting it, Alistair Finch, was smooth and confident, his silver hair gleaming, his smile as sharp as a blade. To the Sheikh's weary eyes, it looked like hope reborn. But in the corner of the room, clutching a worn leather journal, stood Ava. She was 10 years old, dressed in a plain blue dress faded from too many washes, her blonde hair tied back with a ribbon. She was the maid's daughter, invisible by design. Her mother, Helen, moved silently among the men, refilling glasses with bottled water worth more than their weekly groceries. Her face careful, her hands trembling. Ava's great-grandfather had been a soldier and historian, a man who rescued books and art from war. His journal was a treasure, filled with notes about ancient scripts, paper, and seals, and it was his lessons that allowed her to see what no one else did. The parchment was too perfect. Real vellum from the 1600s would have scars, uneven patches where skin had been scraped. This paper was smooth, machine-made. The ink was too black, too fresh. Ancient iron gall ink fades brown and burns into the page. And the seal, ornate and impressive, contained one impossible mistake. A dot in the script that did not exist in that century. Ava's chest tightened as she watched the Sheikh reach for his gold-plated pen. Around the table, Finch's allies leaned forward, their eyes bright with greed. Even the Sheikh's advisors, normally cautious, seemed caught in the tide of promises. Ava felt small, invisible, but her great-grandfather's words burned in her mind. Truth has a quiet voice, but it is the loudest sound in a room full of lies. Her hand trembled. A glass toppled from a side table, crashing against the marble floor. The sound shattered the silence. Every head turned. Finch's smile twisted into anger. "Control your child," he snapped at Helen. "This is not a playground." Helen's face went pale. She reached for Ava, whispering for her to go. But Ava stood rooted to the spot. Her heart hammered, her cheeks burned, and yet her voice rose clear and steady in flawless Arabic. "This is a fake!" The room froze. The investors gaped. Helen's hand fell away. Finch went pale before he forced a laugh. "A trick," he scoffed. "She's a child. She knows nothing." But the Sheikh's eyes locked on Ava. For the first time that night, something stirred within him. Curiosity, even hope. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Prove it!" The men scoffed, muttered, shifted uncomfortably. But Ava walked forward, her small shoes silent on the Persian rug. She placed her great-grandfather's journal on the table. Her chin barely cleared the edge of the mahogany, but her voice did not shake. "You don't need to be old to see the truth," she said. "Real parchment from that time would be uneven. This is perfect, machine cut. Old ink eats into the page. This ink is flat modern. And the seal." She pointed to the crimson wax. The calligrapher used a dot that wasn't invented until a century later. Whoever made this was clever, but they made a mistake. They got the date of the dot wrong. The silence deepened. The advisors leaned closer. The investors shifted uneasily, their confidence wavering. And in Finch's eyes, panic flickered. The Sheikh ordered a magnifier. He bent over the parchment, his dark eyes scanning the details Ava described. Slowly, his expression hardened. The lies glared back at him in the ink, in the paper, in the seal. The truth was undeniable. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of judgment. "Get Professor Al-Fahim on the line and ensure Mr. Finch and his partners do not leave this room." Finch's mask cracked. His empire of charm collapsed. The investors who had once hung on his every word now recoiled, whispers of betrayal swirling. Helen stood by the wall, tears in her eyes, not of fear, but of pride. The professor's confirmation came minutes later. A forgery, he said plainly. A clever one, but a forgery. The Sheikh's gaze turned to Ava. The men in suits, the investors, even her mother, all faded. For the first time in years he smiled, and then he bowed deeply to the maid's daughter in a faded blue dress. In my life, he said softly, I have been surrounded by advisors, experts, men of wealth. But today my honor and fortune was saved by a child with clear eyes and a true heart. Ava stood taller, her great-grandfather's journal clutched to her chest. She had not sought recognition. She had only spoken the truth, and that truth had saved $250 million in something far greater, the Sheikh's dignity. The days that followed changed everything. Helen was offered a position as curator of the Sheikh's private library. No longer a maid, but a guardian of history. Ava was given not money, but access. A sanctuary of books, artifacts, and knowledge. Together, they began a new chapter, uncovering truths, protecting history, and honoring the legacy of a man who once said, most forgers are clever, but they always miss one small thing. Ava had found that small thing, and in doing so, she proved a timeless truth. The smallest voice, when it carries honesty, can stop the greatest lie. So remember this. Power doesn't always come from wealth, or status, or titles. Sometimes it comes from a child in the corner of the room, speaking the words no one else dares to say. Wherever you are watching from, tell me, have you ever seen a truth overlooked because of where it came from? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories of unseen heroes whose quiet voices change the world.